Let's go in the other room. I'm not smart enough to figure it out.
It tastes like the jelly or wine. I tried that.
I need it on, so I'll just transition on what I'm reading. I'm waiting on John Bailey. Chris, how's it going? Now there's an arm missing. Did you look at your blessing? There's an arm missing. I didn't get my reading glasses. I wish I had. No? Yeah, you are the first. Are we on, Chad?
Yep, looks good.
Look at something up.
All right, I'm going to have your attention, please, for just a second. We're still waiting on a couple of people, so we're going to give you a chance to visit for just a minute. But I wanted to mention a couple of things, and let me get my notes here to make sure I have them all. First of all, there will be a bathroom break about halfway through or so, or a little less than halfway through. So if something seems like it's going to burst, if you can, just hang on, because we will give you a chance right before the meal to have the bathroom. Now, the bathrooms are, how do you want them to go? Down this hall, down this way and through this hall to the right. And if you're a lady, you'll take a quick right. And if you're a man, you'll go straight. And if everything's full, there's more upstairs. But during the bathroom break, things will get full quickly. And there's bathrooms on the next floor. The men's is on this side and the women's is on this side, on the main floor. Okay? Okay, so a couple of things. The wine glasses, we wanted to let you know that the wine and the juice has been measured. Okay, so we were very careful. We've done this scientifically. So it's set up. If you hold up your wine glass, I'm reading, all right. If you hold up your wine glass, that wine glass is, if you fill that about half full, that's what we want you to do. That's about 3 ounces, okay? If you fill it completely full on the first, we drink 4 cups of wine. So if you fill it really full, the first 2 cups, you won't have anything the last 2 cups, you see. And you can't go back for more. So the other thing, just to mention, some of us, how many of you are going to stay for the movie? We're going to watch The Passion of the Christ upstairs right after. Some of you signed up, so raise your hand if you are, or we're not going to watch the movie. There's 3 of you. There's 20 of you signed up. You're just not, okay. We just want to make sure. If not, I'll go home and go to bed. But anyway, afterwards we're watching The Passion of the Christ. Those of you who aren't, you're going to be jumping in your car and driving down the road. So here's what I want you to know about the wine. The 4 cups of wine, the last 2 cups are right at the end, and they're real close together. So just use your own judgment, but I think everyone's going to be fine with the amount that we've set up. So that's all I'm saying, you're on your own. And also, parents with little children, listen up. There's probably 3 ounces there for the little children, but little bladders may not be quite that much, and we will be drinking these rather quickly. So just use your own judgment there, parents. As we go through this, has everyone seen their little Haggadah? It's the little order of service. There's some sections in there that are in all bold, usually it's a blessing, and those you will be saying with me. And so this is very participatory. But then there's quite a bit that's not in bold that I'll be reading to you. And so just be aware of that. Then the other thing to mention is this really should be a relaxed thing. Usually this is done in homes, and so this is kind of our little home here and just 100 of our favorite friends, you know. But this is relaxed. Actually, most of the time we eat, it actually calls for us to lean or recline. You can put your elbows on the table, in other words. And we're just relaxing and resting, and there will be a lot of time to just visit and laugh and have a good time, okay? So I was stalling, but I don't think I'm going to stall any longer. Joanne, we want to be in charge for John if he doesn't.
John Bailey?
Yeah, if he doesn't come. Oh, I think I just saw his shadow walk through. We were waiting on John. John, you know, he's... So, any questions or anything before we get started? Okay. We'll let this person we'll give you about 1 minute. So talk for 1 minute till they talk, okay?
We're in a hurry.
No. I can't hear you.
Oh.
I'm not going to deal with that. You want to deal with that? Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. It's too much. But that's not on yours. So you have to listen. Oh, and don't, this reminds me, we've already broken a wine glass. You may think they're real crystal, but they're not. So, be gentle with your wine cups, okay? All right. I'm ready to get started. You guys ready to get started? Let's let them get sit down. it's fine, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, so we'll find our seats, Anna. I'm just teasing. Okay. All right, so you need to open your books up to the first page, the Haggadah. This is your anchor for your soul here during this. There is also going to be there's a little song in there. It's a handout, and we'll use that later on in the service. The Passover Seder. Seder just means order or arrangement, and so it's just the order of service. And the Passover Seder always begins with the lady of the house lighting the candles. And so my wife, the lady of the house, is going to light the candles, and then she's going to say this blessing by herself. It's in bold, but she's going to say it by herself. And so is Mary, you going to help her?
Blessed are you, Lord our God, Master of the universe, who sanctifies us with your commandments and commanded us to kindle the light of the holiday.
All right, and then I'm just going to read some of this to explain what's going on. It says, as the light of the world came into the world by a woman, so the woman lights our candles this evening. Isaiah 7:14 says, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. And so our candles are lit. Now, traditionally, I want you guys to pay attention, because the goal someday is to have you ladies and gentlemen out there being able to host your own Seders in your home. Because usually this is done in the home. You invite some friends over, and that's where we're going eventually. So you need to pay attention to how this is done, right? I want you to look at the Seder plate in the center of your table. There's a plate in the center of your table with some stuff on it. I'm going to explain what's on it right now, okay? That's there to sort of represent some things, and it's to give us, it's our symbolism plate. You're going to find a lamb bone on there, and that represents the Passover lamb. We are actually going to eat lamb tonight, but traditionally, since the temple was destroyed about 2,000 years ago, right after Christ, in the year 70, the temple was destroyed. Since then, Jewish people tend not to eat lamb at the Passover because there is no sacrifices at the temple anymore. Now, they don't believe that Jesus was the sacrificial lamb, so they're in mourning because the temple is not there any longer, and they can't make sacrifices, so they don't eat lamb traditionally. You can, but they usually don't. But they always have a bone, some kind of a bone on the plate to remind them of the sacrifice. There's also horseradish, not the sauce, but that's just horseradish. And that's, moror here is the Hebrew word for bitter herb. That's your bitter herb. You'll remember in Exodus, it says that we eat lamb and bitter herbs and unleavened bread, and that's what that is. And it represents the embittered life that they had when they were slaves. Now, I said they, but during the Passover Seder, it's important. The Lord actually commands that we say, it says in the Bible, it says, when your children say, what does this mean? You say, well, when I was a slave in Egypt, this is what happened. And that's not just for the first generation. The whole Passover Seder is supposed to remind us there's a corporate solidarity there. And the whole thing is set up to say, when I was a slave in Egypt, my life was embittered, but now I'm free. And so we're sort of taking part in that. Also, the third thing, the parsley or celery, you have one or the other probably, and that represents new life that God gives. And it's just the vegetable or the thing that the Lord commands that we eat as well. The other one, the fourth thing, is haroset or karoset, if you want to pronounce it that way. It represents the mortar that was used when they were making bricks. Now, it's really more of a modern thing. Jesus probably didn't have this nice little mixture of apples and nuts and wine. He might have. We don't know. It is pretty old, and it may go back to Jesus' time. We don't really know. But basically, that's not in the Bible. The reason they added that is because the horseradish tastes so bad that you need something to help it go down. And so it's just to help it taste better. Okay? And there's salt water also, a bowl of salt water that represents the tears that were shed by Israel while in Egypt. Now you'll remember the Last Supper, Jesus talks about dipping, we're going to talk about that, dipping his hand in a bowl. There's a lot of dipping that goes on in this, so watch for that. There's 3 matzot, the plural of matzah is matzot, and it's unleavened bread. And there's, who's the leader? Raise your hand if you're the leader at your table. Every table should have a leader. Pauline, you're the leader right now. There you go. Okay, so you can put your hands down. In the little tea towel are 3 matzot, and they each represent something different. One represents Abraham, one represents Isaac, one represents Jacob, and we're going to be doing some special things with those. And then there's some extra matzah as well, because it's going to be so good that you're going to want more than just 3 pieces. And it is homemade matzah. A lot of times Jews don't even get homemade matzahs. You're getting a treat because we wanted to do it the old-fashioned way. And the homemade is a lot better than the saltine crackers. And then, of course, the 4 cups of wine that we'll drink throughout this, they represent 4 different promises that God makes. And we're going to look at that in just a moment. In fact, we're going to look at it right now. So flip over to the next page, Sanctifying the Wine. And this is where we drink the first cup of wine. And the 4 cups that we will drink tonight represent the 4 promises found in Exodus chapter 6, verses 6 to 7. And here's what the 4 promises are. Number 1, God says to them, I will bring you out of Egypt. And this is called the cup of sanctification. It's called the cup of sanctification because we sanctify the wine with a blessing. We sanctify all the wine with this first blessing, and that's why it's called that. The second, I will deliver you, or also he says, I will deliver you and I will judge the nation that has you. So this is called the cup of deliverance, or sometimes it's called the cup of judgment. The third cup represents the promise where God says, I will redeem you, the cup of redemption. And the 4th cup, I will take you to be my people, we're going to call the cup of restoration. Okay, so what we're going to do, I want us to pour our cup of wine right now. So if you have your leader, or 2 of you at the table probably needs to do this. Pour them half full or thereabouts. That's a... I'm not sure I should have put it for John's half full, but John loves the grape juice. So. Shake it. Okay. Ready? Let me hold it up for just a second. What? Okay, that's a lot. I give you a lot of juice there.
Can I drink?
Okay. Where did we put this? Is this right here? We have it taken care of now?
We have some leaky wine glasses.
We have leaky wine glasses, is that right?
Have from the base where they have.
A lot of them? How many have leaky wine glasses?
Marty, you're the only one.
Marty and Logan? Okay. Well, we will wait. We will wait. We're good now? All right. Hey, we're doing this for the first time, and we wanted to do it in such that we could just gather up it all and throw it in the trash. So we wanted to use Easy stuff. Are we ready now? All right, you'll take your little order of service here. We're going to say the blessing together. The blessing over the first cup of wine. And it's traditional to take your glass and hold it up. And these are like toasts to the Lord. That's what we're doing, toasting the Lord for His wonderful, wonderful work towards us, because the Lord has taken us out of slavery and given us freedom. And this is a joyous time. So let's say the blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, Creator of the fruit of the vine. And don't drink yet. Okay, very good. Next blessing, also the giving us life blessing. Say it with me. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has kept us alive and sustained us and brought us to this special time. You know, and I messed up because this is my first time. So set your wine glass back now. And we need to bless our children. We'll need our hands for this. So if you have children at the table, you're involved in this. If you don't have children at the table, if your children are adults, you don't need to do this, okay? But if they're still in your home, you need to do this. You'll stretch out your right hand to the sons, okay? And we'll say this. Fathers, say this. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. All right, that's real good. Now to the daughters, fathers again. May God make you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Very good. And mothers as well, if you don't have your father here. Let's. I'll read Psalm 104, and then we will have our wine. It says, Psalm 104:15 says, "You cause the grass to grow for the livestock." You don't have to say this with me. You can if you want, but it's not in bold, and so you don't have to say it. "You cause the grass to grow for the livestock, and plants for man to cultivate, that he may bring forth food from the earth, and wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart." Part of the purpose of drinking 4 cups of wine is to remember God's abundance towards us and to rejoice. It's a happy time that He's been so kind to us. So with that, we will take and drink the first cup of wine. And you don't have to drink it all at once, but you can if you want. But it does all have to be consumed by the time we drink the second one. No cheating, because, you know, God's blessings, you have to intake all of God's blessings, not just part of it. And that's probably the first time that wine's been consumed in the First Baptist Church. And I'm going to say that. I'm not nervous, I guess. All right. We're gonna go on to the next thing. While you're finishing your wine, you can do it quietly. And I just want to point out that's probably the first time that wine's been consumed in the First Baptist basement since it was built. All right. So at this point, I'm going to do something. At this point, typically all of us would do this. Okay? But just logistically, it was really hard to think about everyone going through a hand washing ceremony. There's 2 different times in the Seder that we wash hands. And I'm going to get Levi to help me with this. I didn't tell him he was going to do this. But Levi's going to follow me with a towel. And he's going to help dry hands. And we're going to go through and wash everyone's hands. And there's two hand washings, one without a blessing and one with a blessing. This is the one without the blessing. I'm going to start right here. So Elsie, you'll hold your hands over this, and I will pour on this. I think typically three different times. And then Levi's going to dry her hands off for her. Open your towel up there a little bit, bub. All right. Okay. You don't have to be that right. All right. Casey's turn. Now I'm dripping on the floor too. It has been dripped on before. I flooded the baptistry about a month ago, and it had a lot of water on it then. All right, Levi. Okay, so you see what we're doing, but I want to point something out. We don't know for certain, but it's very, very likely that it's at this time that Jesus, instead of washing the disciples' hands, washed their feet. And that's, I think, part of the reason they responded the way they did. Because he's not supposed to wash their feet, he's supposed to wash their hands. And, no, there you go. And Peter doesn't understand this and makes quite a fuss. And Jesus says, what I do now you do not understand, but you'll understand later, you see. Because he was teaching them to be a servant. Now, Levi, I'm going to set this here. You put your hands over there. All right. And I'll dry your hands. And then you get to do mine. I get to go last. Very good. All right, I'm going to read this passage of Scripture that talks about Jesus washing the feet. It's in John 13, 1-12. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Jesus answered him, what I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand. Peter said to him, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus answered him, if I do not wash you, you have no share with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. And Jesus said to him, the one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you. For he knew who was to betray him, and that was why he said, not all of you are clean. When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, do you understand what I have done to you? And so we see that Jesus is teaching all of us is a need to be servants. And we see this in the Seder. Okay, now go to the next page. And this is where we dip our vegetables. Now your vegetables, either your parsley or your celery or whatever you had, you can go ahead and get that. This salt water represents the tears of bondage in Egypt. And so what we're going to do, don't eat it yet, we're going to take this and we're going to dip some in the salt water. And we're going to eat it. And you can do that right after the blessing. Okay? So get yourself some vegetable there. Celery or parsley or something. All right. Now, we're not dipping and eating yet. You guys see some, but you guys are going to be able to follow directions before the night's over. I'm sure that's going to take place. So first we're going to hold it and say a blessing, and then we're going to dip. And blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, Creator of the fruit of the earth. Now you can dip it and eat it. It's not supposed to be good. It represents the tears. Tears are salty, and when they're in Egypt, they cried a lot because people were abusing them, eat all at once.
Eat it all at once real quick and then we can. You don't have to eat the stem, just the leaves. And then never forget it. Then take a drink of water. Just eat one leaf, Mary. It is true. Good job, Mary. Making it fun. All right. You don't have to eat it. You couldn't decide. You want it to be fun.
All right, you all are having fun with that, I can tell. You never thought it could be so fun, did you? All right, the next thing that we're going to do, we get to eat some unleavened bread, breaking some matzah. So, if you are the leader, I want you to pay special attention to me, leaders. I want to tell you, and then we'll do it. Okay? On our table somewhere is 3 different matzot wrapped up in a tea towel. Okay? Don't do anything. Just listen. Listen. I've learned that some people can't do and listen. So I'm just going to listen. So what we're going to do, we are going to unwrap that, and each one of them represents something different. We are going to take out the middle piece, and we're going to break that piece in half in a minute. We're going to break that piece in half. You're going to take the larger of the pieces, and there is a paper towel underneath the Seder plate in the middle of your table. And you're going to hide the larger of the 2 pieces in that paper towel, and we will talk about what it's for later. Now the bread, I want you to say this with me. They represent Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Say that. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the middle bread, who does it represent? Isaac. Oh, you're good. Okay, so take some of that out now, leaders, and we'll break that in half. And take the larger of the 2 pieces will be hidden underneath the plate. This is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I'm taking out Isaac, Jacob. And I'm going to tear it, but I'm not going to tear it right in half. I'm going to make a big piece. See how this is bigger? And now I'm going to take this, and Elsie's going to help me so I can get that this way. Both hands. Now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to hide it down here, okay? And we can't see it. I'm going to cover it back up. All right. Okay. You know, I probably am learning just as much as you are on this. I've only seen one of these ever done, and it was last year when I did it. And so every time, that was a whole year ago, and I'm learning. We probably should have held the whole piece and said the blessing, but we've already broke it, and that's fine. But say this blessing with me, or this explanation even, in bold under point 2. This is the bread of affliction, which our fathers ate in the land of Egypt. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Let all who are in need come and celebrate the Passover. All right, and this bread represents Isaac. And let me read you something about Isaac here. And Isaac said to his father Abraham, my father, and he said, here I am, my son. He said, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went both of them together. Do you remember this story? When God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac and take him to the Mount Moriah and sacrifice your son Isaac. And Isaac says, well, where's the lamb? He said, well, God will provide the lamb. And Abraham knew that God had told him to kill Isaac. And he binds Isaac on the altar. And at the last moment, right when he's getting ready to take the knife and stab his son, the author to the Hebrews tells us that Abraham believed that God could raise the dead. And he knew that God had promised that the Messiah would come through Isaac. So he thought, well, if I kill him, God can raise him from the dead. So he was just going to do it, but at the last moment God stopped him and gave him a substitute that was a lamb that was caught by its horns in the brush. You remember that? And so Isaac was spared, and a substitute went in his place. And this bread represents Isaac, and we've taken half of it and hidden it away for a later time. And now, families, it's traditional to actually hide it not under the Seder plate, but to wrap it in a separate cloth and go in the other room somewhere and hide it somewhere away from the kids. It's basically, they've invented things to try to keep the kids' attention because it's a long, boring service, you know. And so later on in the service, the children go and hunt. It's called the afikomen because it's the dessert. And so after the meal, the children go and hunt for it. And there's a reward for any who find it. But we're not going to do that because logistically, again, it's hard. So we're just hiding it under our plates. Now, I think Jesus would have hidden this one away. But I don't think that he hid it in the other room and let the disciples go and look for it. So we're probably doing it maybe more like Jesus did it anyway. All right, so we've taken this. And now we're going to just put this other piece back in here, in between the other two pieces. Okay? And we're not ready to eat it yet. Isn't that strange? Okay.
Hide your bread.
Hide your bread. That's right.
We get to pour a cup of wine too.
We get to pour a cup of wine, Joanne. So now pour your second cup of wine and wait for further instructions. Now remember the first 2 cups of wine, have to do us till almost the end. The last 2 cups, we drink really close together. So if you're going to tank up, it's better to tank up earlier. I don't wish to be crude, than it is later, right before you drive home. So that's just something to think about logistically, just so you don't end up with lots of extra of God's blessings in the pitcher that you haven't taken. Okay. All right. Now we do not drink the wine yet, though. So don't drink it yet. We now this is the main part now. The main part of the Passover Seder is to tell the Exodus story. And I've written there, we're on 6 now. I've written there at the top where this comes from in the Bible. So this Seder, this order of service, is more elaborate probably than Moses did. But some of the elements are exactly the same. But it is, it's over the course of around 3,500 years or so, I think. It's grown a little bit and added, but this is where it comes from. Exodus 12, and when your children say to you, what do you mean by this service? You shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. For he passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt, when he struck the Egyptians, but spared our houses. And the people bowed their heads and worshipped. That's from Exodus 12. So at this point, it's typical for the children, usually the youngest at the table, but we're going to have our 2 older ones do it. And our 2 children are going to stand in as representatives for all the children. So the children, you can have your children read these to you if you want, and you answer them. And if you want, you just do it along with our children, okay? And you can pick your children that are going to do that. So I'm going to turn on a microphone, and they get to speak into a microphone, which they're going to love. But our children are going to ask 4 questions, and then the father is going to answer these 4 questions. And this helps pass on the information and pass on the faith. And there's something that we can learn here, isn't there? This is a catechism. This is an ancient catechism where the children ask questions and the parents answer the questions to teach the faith. Okay, so allow me to turn on the mic. All right, guys. Elsie's going to start us out. And you're going to read the first question in just a minute, and then you'll read the second, you'll read the third, and you'll read the fourth. And these are headed under the question, why is this night different from all other nights? Do you see that? All right, Elsie?
On all other nights we eat either leavened or unleavened bread. Why on this night do we eat only matzah?
On all other nights we eat vegetables of all kinds. Why on this night must we eat bitter herbs?
On all other nights we do not dip our food, even once. Why on this night do we dip our food twice?
On all other nights everyone sits up straight at the table. Why on this night do we recline and eat in comfort?
Now, if you're a traditional Jew, a lot of these questions would be sung or chanted to music and in Hebrew. And these are the same questions in Hebrew, and they've asked them for thousands of years, and they chant them to a tune so they don't forget them, you see. But we're not going to do that. All right. So here's the four answers. Why do we eat the matzah? For two reasons. First, to remember the bread of affliction we had to eat when we were slaves in Egypt. See, when we were slaves in Egypt. And second, to remember how our ancestors fled Egypt in such a hurry that they did not have time for the bread dough to rise. Why do we eat the bitter herbs? We eat them to remind ourselves of how our ancestors' lives were bitter as slaves in Egypt. Why do we dip our food twice? We dip the karpas in salt water to remember the salty tears of the slaves, and also to remember how we crossed the salty waters of the sea. We also dip the maror in the haroset to remember how the bitterness of our slavery was made sweet by the hope of freedom. Why do we recline at the table? We recline tonight as a symbol of our freedom. For when we were slaves, we could never recline in comfort. So it's real typical, even to be written into the order of service, that when we eat this stuff, we kind of put our elbows on the table and lean, you know. You can just really chill out while you're eating. It's supposed to be a fun time. So what we're going to do is recite this summary statement together under 3 there. Say it with me. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord our God brought us out from there by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Now, I'm going to continue to tell the story of redemption. Remember, we are going in a minute to drink the cup of deliverance, which comes from the Exodus promise. I will deliver you from slavery. And I want to read Deuteronomy 26, verses 5 to 8 right now. And you shall make response before the Lord your God. A wandering Aramaean was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there, few in number. And there he became a nation great, mighty, and populous. And the Egyptians treated us harshly and humiliated us and laid on us hard labor. Then we cried to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and the Lord heard our voice and saw our affliction and our toil and our oppression. And the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, with great deeds of terror, with great signs and wonders. All right, at this point, we are going to recite the 10 plagues. And when we recite the 10 plagues, you're going to need something. I don't know if you have any of the vegetable left, or I'm not sure what else you could use. You can use your finger traditionally. If you have parsley left, it's okay to use parsley or your finger, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to get your wine glass close enough to your plate that you can participate in this, and we're going to recite out loud the 10 plagues, and with every plague, we're going to dip our finger into our wine and then let it kind of dribble on the plate, in other words. And we do this because it says, since our cup of salvation cannot be regarded as full when we recall the sufferings of the Egyptians, a drop of wine is removed from the cup with the mention of each plague. This is a recognition that we are not happy at the suffering of God's enemies, but that we have mercy and we are sad when other people suffer. Okay? So we're going to recite these. I've got them written there. So let's recite them. Blood. Okay, we drip a little bit on there. Now the second, frogs. Third, lice. 4, beasts. 5, cattle plague. Okay, you're not all reciting. Number 6, boils. There you go. That sounds right. I'll take your wine away from you. 7, hail. Okay, that helped. Okay, 8, locusts. 9, darkness. And 10, death of the firstborn. All right. So at this point, I'm going to actually read the Exodus story. I could do this from the Bible. If you're doing this Seder and it's all adults, you do this from the Bible, and I've got it written down there. But I'm not going to read that passage. I'm going to read a story from the children's Bible. And at this point, if you are a youngster and would like to come up so you can see the pictures in the children's Bible, and that you would like to just move around a little bit, I'm going to invite the youngsters to come up and sit down right here. And my kids are going to do this. Don't drink it yet. You're going to come down and sit right here on the stage. You don't have to. Well, everyone else is going. So come on up and sit right here. We can move around a little bit, and that's nice. Just sit right there, just on the front. That's wonderful. All right. And I'm going to read a story from the Jesus Storybook Bible. It's a really good Jesus-centered Bible. And I'm going to read God to the Rescue. Okay? I'll show you all the pictures too. Okay, Joseph and his brothers grew old and died. But their children's children stayed on in Egypt, where they became a very large family. Later on, a new king began to rule, but this Pharaoh didn't remember Joseph. Would you like me to turn this on? Okay, later on, a new king began to rule, but this Pharaoh didn't remember Joseph. And he didn't like God's people. He made them into his slaves and beat them and made them work harder and harder. God's people cried out to God to rescue them, and God heard them. He remembered his promise to Abraham. He would look after his people. He would find a way to set them free. One day Moses was looking after the sheep when something caught his eye. A bush was behaving very oddly. It was flickering with flames, but its leaves weren't burning up. He took a closer look. "Moses," boomed a big voice. Pretty good, wasn't it? Moses leapt back. The bush was talking to him. "I have heard my people's cries," God said. "I have seen their tears, so I have come down to rescue them. Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go free." Moses was afraid, but God said, "I will be with you." You guys see the burning bush here? It's good, isn't it? All right, so Moses went to Pharaoh. "Pharaoh," Moses began. God said, Pharaoh, never heard of it. Moses kept going. God says, "Let my people go free." "Why should I?" Pharaoh said. "Don't want to." "Won't." So he didn't. So God gave Pharaoh 10 warnings called plagues. First, God turned the river Nile into blood. No one could drink the water. But still, Pharaoh would not let them go. So God made frogs come hopping and leaping and jumping, in your bed frogs and in your hair frogs and in your soup frogs and all over everywhere frogs. "Make them go away," Pharaoh screamed. "Then your people can go." So God took the frogs away. But Pharaoh changed his mind. "You can't go," he said. Then God sent zillions of gnats. How many did he send? Zillions. That's a whole lot. Zillions of gnats, but still Pharaoh said no. So then God sent swarms of flies. Flies buzzing in your eyes, flies. And after that, sickness, horrible boils and huge hailstones and a storm of locusts, then darkness when it should have been day, until it seemed that the whole world, creation and everything, was coming undone, falling back into darkness and emptiness and nothingness. But each time Pharaoh said, make it stop, and then I'll let them go. And each time when God made it stop, Pharaoh changed his mind and said, actually, no, you can't go. Finally, Moses warned Pharaoh, obey God, or he will have to send the worst thing of all. And Pharaoh just laughed. So God said, the oldest boy in each family of Egypt must die. Raise your hand if you're the oldest boy. You adults too. Raise your hand high if you're the oldest male in your family. All right. There'll be a lot of dead people living there. In fact, it says there was not a house without someone who was dead. So God said, the oldest boy in each family of Egypt must die, but my people will be safe. Now listen, guys. God told his people to take their best lamb, to kill it, and to put some of its blood on their front doors. You guys see this? Looks like blood, doesn't it? That's what we've done here. To put some of its blood on their front doors. When God passes over your house, Moses explained, God will see the blood and know that the lamb died instead of you. That night, it was just as God had said. Suddenly piercing the darkness, echoing down through the corridors of the palace, came a blood-curdling scream. Pharaoh's oldest son had died. At last, Pharaoh did what God said. Get out, Pharaoh shouted. Just go. And so that very night, Moses and God's people fled out of Egypt and out of slavery. They were free at last. God's people would always remember this great rescue and call it Passover. But an even greater rescue was coming. Many years later, God was going to do it again. He was going to come down once more to rescue his people. But this time, God was going to set them free forever and ever. Wow, that's good. Okay, you guys can go back to your seats. Isn't that great? All right. Now I think we're safe to actually hold our cup this time. We're going to say the blessing as we hold the cup up. And you see this blessing at the bottom of the page. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. All right, drink the cup of deliverance. All right, now we get to sing. I hope your heart is glad enough to sing, because I don't want to be the only one singing here. Now look, at the back of your folder, hopefully, is a little sheet of paper. And I found this week and thought this is just perfect. Dayenu, say Dayenu. Dayenu. Say die. Die. Say a. Say nu. You've got it, Dayenu. Dayenu means it would have been enough, or it is enough. It's a Hebrew word. And this song is a little bit over 1,000 years old, I think. So Jesus didn't sing this at the Passover. We're going to sing a hymn later that he probably did sing. And we know some of what Jesus sang. But he didn't sing this. But we are going to sing it because it's pretty traditional. Now, you see on the left column is the Hebrew words transliterated, and you don't need to worry about that. But the translation, had he brought all of us out from Egypt, then it would have been enough. You see that? And then after that, we will sing Dayenu between every verse. Now look at the left-hand column at the very bottom. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. That's how it goes. So I'm going to sing through the. Actually, I'll sing the first verse there where it's written, and I'll sing the Hebrew on the first verse. Okay, and then you'll join with me. That gives you the tune. Then we'll all sing those three verses there in the English translation. You'll sing with me. Can you do that? Okay? All right. Ilu hotzi hotzi anu mi mitzrayim hotzi anu mi mitzrayim dayenu 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 I'm not sure. The translation doesn't work exactly right. Had he brought all of us out from Egypt, then it would have been enough. Dayenu. Do it again. Had he brought all of us out from Egypt, then it would have been enough. Dayenu. Sing Dayenu. Dayenu. You understand the point of the song, don't you? That God has given us a lot more blessings than we deserve. And if He would have just given us a few of these blessings, it would have been enough. But He's not stopped with just these. There's 15 verses, so we just sang a few of them. But there's a lot of blessings that God has given us that we really do not deserve. And it would have been enough if He only had given us one. All right, at this time, we're going to wash hands again. So you get to watch this again. But this time, with a blessing. We already have the dish prepared by one of our servants. And I don't mean servants in that he's a servant of the Lord that I'm sure wishes to remain nameless. That sounded bad, didn't it? Okay, so say the blessing with me. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us about washing the hands. All right, so my helper is going to rise with me, and let's wash hands. I think we're faster on the second round. I think we'll be faster. You can time us and see. Unless I trip and spill the water or something, which is possible. I can set it over the side real quick. Just get that over. Okay, perfect. Raise your hands a little bit, John. There you go. Now your turn. Over there. You guys are doing a good job. Raise your hands.
table. I'll get this. What? Huh? What was it, someone's phone? Oh.
All right, Elsie told me there was a bird in the church, and I believed it. I thought, I guess it's outside though. Spill some water there. All right, we've washed our hands. Now we're going to talk about the shank bone of the lamb. The Passover, which our ancestors ate, what is the reason for it? They ate the Passover because the Holy One passed over the houses of our ancestors in Egypt. As it is written, and you shall say it is the Passover offering for the Lord who passed over the houses of the Israelites, saving us in Egypt, but struck down the houses of the Egyptians. All right, we finally get to eat some matzah. We're now ready to eat some matzah, but not just any matzah. The very special matzah representing our fathers, Abraham and Isaac. And so if you're a leader, that means the matzah that's wrapped in the tea towel and not the one that's under the plate, which we've forgotten about at this point. All right. It represents our fathers Abraham and Isaac, the great patriarchs of our faith, who demonstrated the truth of God's sacrificial love by binding of Isaac upon the altar. We will now take out the top and middle matzot, representing Abraham and Isaac. We will break off some pieces for everyone, and before we break, we will recite 2 traditional Hebrew blessings. So let's recite the blessings, and then leaders, you can take out the top and middle pieces and break them and distribute them amongst you, okay? Say this with us. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And again, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to eat the matzah. All right, so let's find it and break it. And which ones do we use, guys? The top and the middle pieces. So how much do you guys want? A lot? There's some. You want a lot? Not yet. Yeah, don't eat it yet. We'll eat it in just a minute. I'll tell you. Well, you can eat it. Go ahead and eat it. Just eat it. Just eat it.
Well, that's the next thing.
All right. Levi? Give that to the mom. Now let me give you some advice. Let me give you some advice. Just eat a little bit, because in just a moment we're going to eat some more and dip it. You're going to want to have a little bit to dip. And in just a moment, when leaders, when they want more, there's more on the tray. But save, leaders, the one that represents Jacob, leave it alone, okay? But if we want some extra, use the extras, because we have something to do with Jacob in just a minute, okay? So eat a little bit. All right, now is the moment you've all been waiting for. We're gonna recite a blessing and then eat some horseradish. There's a lot of tastes. One thing I like about the Passover, there's a lot of strong tastes, you know, and I really think this is neat. So let's do 9 there. Eat the bitter herbs. We're gonna recite this blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to eat bitter herbs. So now we are doing these things, eating the matzah, the bitter herbs. We're doing those things that Moses commanded, God commanded through Moses. These things have been done for over 3,000 years. So we're going to take some matzah, and if you need some extra, you already eaten, take some of that extra that you have on your plate, and put on some horseradish. That's okay.
So dip in some horseradish. What?
Now it is okay if you want to add some carousel to it to make it palatable. But you're a sissy if you do that. No. Here, second. Yes. We won't put much of that on. I'll put some carousel on there. There, eat this. It's good. Now this is the good stuff. It's sweet. God commands us to. It's real good. Did you eat some? Have you? Well, you have to. But I won't do. You don't need to eat it. Here, I'll put some. I'll put here. No, I got it. I put some sweet on it. Do it. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, you can eat. What you do is you take some matzah, put some horseradish on it, and if you're a sissy, then you put a little carousel on it. I'm just teasing, but you can put some of, and just eat it and enjoy it, and talk about how strong it is. But we're going to eat some more carousel in a minute, so don't be of good cheer. All right. Now I'm going to read while you're quietly eating, of course, as you are doing. I'm going to read this little passage from Exodus 1 that reminds us why we were eating something like horseradish. How many ate it just plain? All right. It's good, isn't it? That's why we put some water there, in case you didn't have any wine left over. That's why we had the water there. All right. Now listen up. Here's Exodus 1, 8-14. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph, and he said to his people, "Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. They built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and the more they spread abroad. And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. So they ruthlessly made the people of Israel work as slaves and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in all kinds of the work in the field. In all their work, they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. And so that's why we eat the bitter herbs to remind us of that bitterness of slavery. All right, we can flip and do 10. Now we get to eat a Hillel sandwich. Hillel was a rabbi just shortly after the time of Christ or around the time of Christ. And there was a little debate on which part you have to eat first. You know, the Jewish people, they say, well, you know, God's given us these commands, and they get a little hung up sometimes on the details on exactly how it should be done. So he dealt with this by just putting it all together and eating it in a little sandwich. So we eat it. What we do now is we take the third piece of matzah that represents Jacob that we have in our cloth, and we distribute that, and we're going to make a little sandwich out of that. We're going to put a little bit of horseradish, a little bit of carousel on it, and we're going to make a little sandwich and eat it. You can use the extra matzah that you have on your plate. Just don't touch the one that's hidden, okay? So go ahead and make a sandwich and eat it and enjoy it. Yes, that's okay. Do you want a little bit? You don't have to. You guys want some? Here you go. Let me give you this. Let's use this first. I'm the leader. You're not the leader. Okay, put that on your lap. Levi, here's your one piece. Once you use that piece, give that one to Mom, and I'll give you another one for Mom. You can break that one and use that one. There you go. And I'll use this little. We've got some extra left over here. Mom, do you need me to pass the plate down? I'm not going to worry about that.
This connected together.
I think it's good. I know it is. Now do it was. All right, here's what we're going to do now. While you're, you can just pause on your consumption of the sandwich. We're going to recite a blessing that gives thanks for the meal, and then we're going to eat. And here's what's going to happen. After we recite the blessing, you're going to pause just for a moment and let the people that's going to set up the food go ahead and get up, okay? Yeah, that in just a minute. As soon as we say the blessing, those who are getting the food ready will go ahead and get up. And you'll just stay put for just a minute, finish your sandwich. And then we're going to take about 5 minutes and go take a bathroom break. And then when we come back, we'll sit down at our tables and someone will dismiss you table by table to come up and get your food, and we'll eat a meal. And just have a good time eating a meal. And we'll eat for a while. And then when we close the meal, there's a few more things that we have to do. But the bulk of the service is over after the meal is eaten. Okay? So what we're going to do is recite this blessing, and then the server's going to get up, and then I'll dismiss you to go to the bathroom in just a moment, okay? So let's see, that's on page 11 there. Recite the blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to eat the Passover. All right. The guys getting the food ready, you can go ahead and get up, and you guys can eat your sandwich for just about 1 minute. And feel free to get more matzah and eat more stuff. You know, just feel free to enjoy it. All right, you're dismissed to the bathroom. And when you come back, you'll just take your seat and wait to be dismissed one by one.